Illinois faces some big challenges. Today, we're about to hear a truly honest analysis of the problems we face. Equally as important, you'll also hear an in-depth discussion of some practical solutions. This is your radio source for stories, the insight, and the answers you won't hear anywhere else. Not in the media and not coming from Springfield. You're listening to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Now, here's your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Good afternoon, Dan Proft, and joining me on this edition of Illinois Rising is Illinois Policy Institute President and CEO John Tillman. John, presidential campaign going on. You may have noticed.
This is an election year?
Yeah, it is. But I wonder if the outcomes are going to be fait accompli before they get to March 15th. The candidates come to town, and Illinois voters have a chance to make their selections. I'm referring on my morning show to President-elect Trump. Already at this stage. Is that where you at, or are you still holding the candle for another candidate?
I think given that we're just finishing the 8th year now of President Hillary Clinton's victory from 2008, I don't think we should jump to conclusions here. So, there's a long ways to go. I think only about 5% of the delegates have been selected. I think after Super Tuesday, it'll be about a third. But there's still a huge backloaded chunk of delegates that go all the way out into June. So I don't think anything is set in stone. I think the bigger question is, who's going to rise and get above the 40% mark and put Trump into second place? Can Rubio do it? It seems to me Cruz is starting to fade. And with all of these conversations about politics, by the way, Dan, they are my personal opinions, of course.
I understand that. You're right as American, given to you by our Lord above. For some perspicacious insights into...
Perspications, Dan?
Perspicacious.
Perspicacious.
Yes, perspicacious insights into the state of play in the presidential race. We're now joined by Chris Roebling, Republican strategist and principal at ClearSpan Strategic. Chris, thanks for joining us.
And you better see a doctor about that P word.
Good to be with both of you. Hello, John. Hello, Dan.
So, Chris, President-elect Donald Trump, your reaction?
Well, I think we have to get out of politics, and we've got to get to something bigger. There's something bigger going on here, I guess, and I think I don't know how you guys felt personally when you saw that 45 coming out of Nevada, but I just thought this guy has somehow linked himself to the spirit of the moment, and it's no longer about anything with which we're familiar from the typical political realm. We've gone into sort of a phenomenon in which he has connected with people, a lot of people, and it's a lot of people. It's not everybody but it's a lot.
Well, let me suggest something that we have seen this phenomenon before, and that the synonym for populism in 2008 was hope, and the synonym for populism in 2016 is winning. We just have a populist candidate on our side 8 years after Democrats had one on theirs.
Yeah, I want to believe that. I think that's really terrific, Dan. I want to subscribe to your newsletter because let me tell you, it's what's troubling to me is not so much the fact that he's struck this chord, okay, and generated this response. It's all of this stuff on the side. I mean, there are these very concerning elements of how he has gotten here, and I think that. Two quick points. Number one, I agree with Chris Matthews, and that's rare, very rare.
Mr.
40 years, I've never agreed with this guy, but he I think Chris Matthews appropriately parsed out the Trump proposal, and Trump's basic proposal is either we've got a country or we don't. That's what I saw at the City Club in Chicago in June. That's what I'm hearing today. I think that there is a brilliance to that.
But I think that. Oh, go ahead, Chris. I thought you were done. Sorry.
Well, that's the big concept under which the guy is operating. Now, the little concept is sort of his own personal style, and that personal style, is kind of a brawling New York real estate developer, and I think that's laid down some things that are offensive to me as a longtime conservative, Reagan conservative kind of guy. And that's not to deny there weren't things very offensive about Obama with hope and change 8 years ago. I completely agree with that too, Dan.
Yeah, but I think what's interesting about Dan's narrative there about populism is the difference between Trump and Obama is that Obama ran as a populist driven with demagoguery and ideology. Trump is running as a populist driven by narcissism, and of course Obama has his share of that. But Trump has no ideology that is discernible. He is absolutely a chameleon. We have no idea what he will actually do if he becomes president, and that is both thrilling and terrifying to me at the same time. Could be great. Maybe he becomes Reagan, right? Can you believe that? On the other hand, maybe he's the second coming of Barack Obama.
Well, Reagan's personnel chief, Pendleton James, said famously, personnel is policy. And I think when you get to I know, John, the great stuff that Illinois Policy Institute puts out is all written and it's well thought out and well reasoned and everything else. But you need actual human beings to physically get that stuff done. And if real people don't get it done, it's still just words on a page. Okay. So here, I think that I agree with you. We don't know exactly what he's going to do on X or Y or Z, and there are some things that are very troubling about what he says. I'm not as troubled like on this whole Muslim thing. Donald Trump is in Dubai. Donald Trump's got a big tower in Turkey. I don't think he's got sort of personal animus to categories of fellow human beings. But I think that on the other hand, he might take us in a Smoot-Hawley protectionist direction that would be disastrous, not just for our overall macroeconomic health, but would also hurt many working Americans, because in the long run, protectionism hurts the middle class. They're the ones who pay the price.
As we look at Illinois, with the primary here a couple weeks away, so Hillary Clinton has about a 12-point lead on Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump has about a 12, 13-point lead on Ted Cruz. Now, of course, that could change. There's momentum's a funny thing. See what happens on Super Tuesday and the like. But don't you find that interesting? The Republican primary electorate in Illinois giving Donald Trump a double-digit lead.
Well, I remember a gubernatorial candidate a few short years ago who was very, very much out there calling for a kind of appropriate revolution in Illinois governance.
Yeah, how'd that work out for that guy?
Well, but I thought he was laying down a lot of markers that got picked up by a guy named Bruce Rauner.
You were too early, Dan.
Right.
Too early.
Yeah, story of my life.
You know what? Everybody needs a John the Baptist, and so Dan the Baptist was there.
You know how that ends, right?
You're going to be smote down for that comparison, Mr. Roebling.
But I want to say, I think that, people are fed up. This gets back to the beginning. There is a spirit of the age, a zeitgeist right now, and I believe that this is directly aimed at Obama's excesses and at the establishment Republicans' recesses, Too much from Obama, too little from the Republicans. We're sick of everybody. Let's try Trump.
Well, and what does Trump represent? I mean, I agree with you. It's psychological. It's not substantive, and so it's a swagger, and I've got the swagger. I've won in life, and now I'm going to bring winning to you after you have been fleeced by a government you financed by both parties for the last 15 years, and then blamed for everything that's going on top of it. You're losing your kind of access to economic opportunity, as well as the culture, what you thought defined America. I mean, culturally, there's been a huge shift, even just from 2012 to present.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And honestly, I'm going to use a name here probably for the first time on your august radio program. I'm not really sure where Donald Trump and his many former spouses, and then there's sort of, fashion stuff, and he has all this, and then there you get to the Kardashians, and then you're into God knows what. So there's some kind of weird societal acceptance of all of this excess that's going on. And I think that the regular voter, you go to the regular voter in South Carolina, you go to the regular voter in Nevada. So how do you, well, that shows he's a successful businessman. I mean, there is this sort of broad societal, whatever it takes to win kind of thing. And now it's being applied to politics.
I think the part of that is interesting is I don't think there's a broad societal acceptance of all of these things. I think there's a media cultural arts acceptance of all of this. And so therefore it feels like it's been mainstream. But I think what Trump is tapping into, to go back really way back to the silent majority, the people that just sort of live their lives, go to work, Most of them go to church, maybe not all the time. They might not be the most devout person, but they're trying, right? So they're aspirational in all of these things to try to live a good civic life. And they see all of this stuff from Kardashian to Trump and just the craziness that goes on to the Super Bowl halftime show. And they're like, what is our world coming to? And so he is appealing to that. It's that sense of rebellion of the elite status quo on both coasts that people are responding to. And that desire is trumping policy imperatives.
Yeah, and that I think is very well said. And goodness only knows what he's going to do about taxes. Goodness only knows what he is going to do about Social Security, about entitlements. You know, in many respects, we're playing in a realm that is defined by Obama's cowardice to deliver on his own self-generated campaign promise to address entitlements. And that has, in my opinion, overwhelmingly set the landscape of 2016 and beyond. Do you guys? I missed the press release. I missed the white paper. I don't know, what is he going to do about entitlement?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing. The concern is you don't know what to be concerned about.
It's going to make him great.
It'll make them the greatest ever.
Chris Roebling, Republican strategist, principal at ClearSpan Strategic. Chris, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you. Thanks.